And we look it up, and lo and behold, it is a real casting agency. And it's like, oh, it looks like they're working on a show for Hello Sunshine. And we're like, we know Hello Sunshine. Hello Sunshine is a real company. And we see the casting call that they actually have online. And so we start getting a little excited. We message back, and within 5 or 10 minutes, someone responds and asks for a call. We say, okay, we're going to throw all this cookie dough in the garbage, and we're going to go outside. We're going to take this phone call and see what happens. We end up on a call for an hour with the casting agency, and they said that they would let us know in a couple of days after they talked to the production company. And we actually ended up getting an email within an hour, and later that week did a video call. I think 2 or 3 weeks later, we were cast on the show.
Wow, that's crazy. Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shelf Talks. Today, we are thrilled to have with us Tania Sweis, co-founder of Brune Kitchen, the world's first tahini-based cookie on the market that is super clean. I mean, it's gluten-free, vegan, paleo, free of refined sugars, all of the things, and ultimately tastes amazing. And that's coming from firsthand knowledge. I have tasted them and they taste really great. Welcome, Tanya. I'm excited to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much, Roberta. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Same. I'm excited too. I mean, ultimately would love to kind of learn about Brune Kitchen, but also I'm intrigued to understand how you went from being a lawyer and kind of always wanting to do that all your life, right?
Yeah.
To deciding that you wanted to start your own cookie brand. So can you take us back before even Brune Kitchen was even a thought? Where were you in your life? Where were you headed? Your dreams, your desires, and I also want to know, were you the one like every holiday in the kitchen baking cookies?
I was. I think we can probably, right after learning to walk, I probably just headed straight into the kitchen. A little earlier than I should have, but it's always been kind of a creative outlet for me, something that I've loved. I would say since elementary or middle school. I think maybe two things I've always been sure of. I love to bake, and I probably want to be a lawyer. I was very lucky that I was kind of able to pursue both of those things. But yeah, I mean, before we launched Brune Kitchen, Jahan and I were both corporate attorneys in Los Angeles, and we actually met way back in law school at Berkeley. And even while practicing law, I was always baking. It was a
Oh,
way for
really?
me to it was a way for me to kind of de-stress from studying, to take a break, kind of shift my mind into kind of a more relaxed mode and concentrate on something that wasn't my law books. Jahan and I actually lived in the same building during law school, so she was my taste tester from many, many years ago. So over that time, even when we were just in school, we talked a lot about starting a business together. We had such a strong friendship and a really good working dynamic. And we would even have, wine nights at one of our apartments talking through business ideas, but it was a long time before we landed on something that felt right. So the real turning point came from our own personal health journeys. So while we were working at the same law firm in LA, we were working really long hours. Jahan found out that she had some autoimmune issues, and
Mhm.
right around the same time, I actually developed a lot of food allergies. So we both had to completely transform our diets, and we couldn't find any clean, convenient snacks that actually tasted good or satisfied our craving. And that's when I started experimenting in the kitchen with food science and alternative baking, alternative ingredients, and eventually started using ingredients from my own heritage, like tahini, like tiger nuts, and incorporating them to create the textures that I found were missing in the market. So one night I baked what would eventually become the first Brune cookie, and I took a photo, and I immediately texted John. I still have that text, and I said, "This is it. I found the idea." I brought the cookies over to her the next day. It was COVID. I dropped off a bag outside of her house. I was like, "You have to try these." And from that point on, it was clear we had something special.
Wow, that's amazing. And just the fact too that you went from something that was really just a creative outlet for you to deciding like, hey, I want to go after this and actually start a business.
Yeah, it wasn't really how I thought it would happen. It was always a hobby for me, but I think it really was going through that health journey and realizing that there was this gap in the market that surprisingly actually impacts a lot of women. Women have disproportionately higher rates of autoimmune disease, and that often is correlated with having to make big dietary transformations. And we started meeting more people at our forum for more of our friends, a lot of other women that were experiencing the same thing. And so it was a way to kind of bring together that background that I had with our, you know, business acumen and kind of bring everything. It was like all the stars aligned that this is the thing that we're supposed to be doing. This is something that we can do to help.
Yourselves and others, right?
Yeah, we are our own target demographic, I always say.
Yeah. So once you kind of had that kind of finalized, like, cookie and you were like, this is it, what were next steps? I mean, did you even know like what to do next to really build a brand?
Well, actually, in some ways, from a legal perspective, yes. Jahan and I are both actually startup attorneys. So we worked a lot with startups. We can put together a
Mhm.
company. From a contract perspective, we knew what we were doing. But in terms of CPG, food and beverage, this was a whole new ball game that neither of us had any experience in. And honestly, I just started to study. There was a lot of really incredible online resources. People in the CPG community are unusually helpful, like very, very interested in paying it forward and helping other founders and talking to people. Like that's something that I found really, really lovely about the industry. And there's also a lot of really wonderful CPG communities, especially in Los Angeles where we were. So we kind of tried to tap in as much as possible, understand how the business works operationally, what costs are we looking at, understanding costs for retail, costs for direct to consumer, what steps are we going to have to take, and kind of put together an entire business plan before we invest our own money and time into this business. Is it something that's viable at all?
Yeah. What were some of the places that or the outlets you found super helpful to gain that knowledge?
So I actually started out with Startup CPG, which I think is national, and the Naturally community, like particularly Naturally LA, Naturally San Diego, they have a lot of events and talks where you can, learn from industry experts about distribution, about product development, and it's very, on the one hand, informational, and then there's also a lot of opportunity to network, to speak with other founders, learn about their experiences. And I honestly reached out to a lot of people on LinkedIn, just kind of cold emails, people that I respected, admired, and just asked if I could, chat with them and give them a couple of cookies and pick their brain. And I got very lucky that, a couple of people were open to talking. And yeah, we kind of tried to pull resources from wherever we could and learn as much as possible. At this point, also, we had so much help and insight along the way. It's something that we try and pay forward to anybody that ever wants to chat.
Yeah. I think those are great gems too for people that are at the early stages of creating a brand because they don't know like where to go, where to get resources, how to connect with people. So thank you for that. I think that's going to be definitely super helpful. So you now have this cookie, you've done your research, you feel it's a viable product and brand to start to launch. And then 2021, you decide to actually launch the brand online, right?
Yeah.
So what did that look like? I mean, were, the early days of selling like what you had planned? Was it, different reaction to what you initially thought it was going to be? What did those early days of performance look like?
So we had an interesting experience. We started off direct to consumer. So we put together the website, we launched online, and leading up to that first launch day, we kind of did a deep dive into putting together a social media like influencer marketing campaign to introduce Brune to what we, believe to be our target demographic and the people that would be the most interested in the product. And we had a lot of positive feedback from that initial outreach. People were really interested in working with us, which we were so grateful for, and they had a great reaction to the product. And we reached a lot of consumers, and we actually ended up reaching a lot of retailers just through that initial social media launch.
Oh,
So
wow.
with Yeah, so within a week of our online launch, Arowan reached out to us and said that they were interested in trying the product. And we had not prepared at all for retail at that stage. So we were like, we are going to do online for a couple of months as we kind of work on retail in the back end. And I'm telling you, Roberta, 1 week later, we got an email, which I was like, this is not real. There's no way this is happening. Someone is playing a really mean joke, and or I'm dreaming. It's one or the other. Surprisingly, it was real, and we started to go through the process. We did a very fast pivot, brought on a distributor, got everything in order, sent the samples, and within a month or two, that was our first retail account. So yeah, it was a an interesting launch process.
Did you do any pitching to Airwan?
No, no, they found us online and they asked for samples, and thankfully they really enjoyed the cookies. And the one comment that they did have, we had been planning on being an organic product from day one. Our very first online launch, we had a handful of products that we hadn't sourced as organic just yet, and they were like, for us, obviously that's incredibly important to them as it's important to us as well. And we're like,
Right.
okay, we're ready to make the switch. Next round, everything's all organic. And yeah, we got on the shelf. I think we launched in August, and we were on the shelf there by November.
That's amazing. I mean, great for you to pivot so quickly and be able to turn that around when you really didn't even have a future vision or a vision in the next couple of months, right? To be on retail store shelves and to be an Airwan, which is definitely, I think, the most sought after grocer right now, just in regards to brands that are newly emerging, and that's where you find all the trends. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, they're an amazing retail partner.
Yeah. So then you got on shelf, and what was sales like there initially when you were kind of not really prepared to be in retail and then kind of, pushed into it? What were the buyers saying in regards to performance at the beginning?
Performance actually went super well. We were between top five and top three in our category when we launched. So I think, Arowan it's like the type of product that we have just fits really well with, their offerings with their customers. And we also, from our end, tried really hard to market as much as possible. So we continued with our influencer marketing campaign, a dedicated campaign just for Arowan. We launched our holiday flavors there as well. We did in-store demos as much as possible, founder-led demos, trying to speak to customers, get feedback, understand what's going well, what's not going well, what are they looking for. And I think, especially for a clean product, there is a healthy amount of skepticism from consumers. When you make claims like gluten-free or vegan or, no refined sugar, most people, understandably, myself included, are skeptical if this is gonna taste
Tastes
good.
good.
And
Right.
exactly, oftentimes it doesn't. So it is, a well-placed skepticism. With a new product, I think it's so important to get it in people's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Have someone try it. No one is going to believe a brand that is telling them our cookie tastes the best. This is going to be the best dessert you've ever had. Of course we're going to see that. We're not going to tell you that this is a mediocre, this is a mediocre product. We're always going to say that it tastes good, but the only way to truly convince someone that's skeptical is to give them a cookie and have them try it and have them realize for themselves that it actually doesn't taste like cardboard. So demos, brand activations, showing up everywhere that we could in LA. That's what we did, and that's how we got the word out.
So were you still making the cookies at home when you were in Erewhon initially?
No, we had a commercial kitchen in Los Angeles with a small team, and by small team I mean myself and Jahan and our moms. I mean, we all got our, food safety training. Everything was above board, but that very first time, I actually think it was Jahan's aunt, one of our friends, and we were all just in the kitchen making these cookies.
Oh,
But
wow.
we slowly grew our team, and thankfully now we have a co-packer, and I'm not covered in cocoa powder all the time. But those early days, it was definitely us in there. I have some Cinderella photos cleaning up chocolate chips on the
Oh
floor.
my gosh. And you were doing that at the same time as full-time being a lawyer as well?
Yes. So we were, basically baking in the evenings, baking on the weekends. Ultimately, well, when I very first launched Brune, I took a sabbatical for a short period to kind of fully dedicate myself to getting it off the ground, but then went back to practicing.
Got it. And just multitasked between both.
Yes, yes.
Some
Multi,
heavy
multi,
multitasking.
multi.
So when you were in the kitchen, and I believe there was a time which you kind of noted that you went and started to use a co-packer. And it seemed like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the same time was around the time you and Jahan were able to be on the show Side Hustlers,
Yes.
which is an amazing show. Emma Grede, Ashley Graham, super investors, serial entrepreneurs, influencers, just really badass women that help support and grow other emerging brands. So can you talk a little bit about like how you even got on the show?
Yeah, so this is actually somewhat similar to the Arowan story in that we got a DM on Instagram, and I actually had gotten it a couple of days before, and I was in the kitchen with Jahan, and we were baking at the commercial kitchen, and I told her, Jahan, I got this message on Instagram, and I think it's a scam. And they're saying that there's this TV show about female founders. It sounds too good to be true. People are so creative in the ways that they're trying to scam us these days. Let me show you this message. So, and we're in our aprons. We have the team there. We're, again, covered in cocoa powder, chocolate chips, hair and buns and hair nuts. And I pull up this message and we read it, and it's like, maybe we should just check, the name of this company and this, so-called casting agency and see what the deal is. And we look it up, and lo and behold, it is a real casting agency. And it's like, oh, it looks like they're working on a show for Hello Sunshine. And we're like, we know Hello Sunshine. Hello Sunshine is a real company. And we see the casting call that they actually have online. And so we start getting a little excited. We message back, and within 5 or 10 minutes, someone responds and asks for a call. We say, okay, we're going to throw all this cookie dough in the garbage, and we're going to go outside. We're going to take this phone call and see what happens. We end up on a call for an hour with the casting agency, and they said that they would let us know in a couple of days after they talked to the production company. And we actually ended up getting an email within an hour, and later that week did a video call. I think 2 or 3 weeks later, we were cast on the show.
Wow. That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy and so fast.
it was so fast. It was like I was spinning in circles. Jahan and I kept looking at each other like this
Is
isn't
this really
happening,
happening,
right?
right?
We're not gonna be on a TV show, right? That wasn't on my bingo card this year.
So when you were, even now, I don't know if it's still now, but I know before I read that you actually worked with VCs in your practice. So had you thought of getting investors for your business? Was that something that was part of your kind of roadmap for the brand?
We did. I think because we had a lot of experience doing these equity raises, doing safe rounds, and more institutional investment with the startups that we were working with, we saw it go wrong pretty often. A lot of companies take on investment very early, give away a lot of their equity, incentives are no longer aligned, there's predatory terms, and that was something that we really wanted to avoid. So we knew that eventually we would likely take on investment to be able to get to the level of expansion that we had envisioned for Brune, but we tried as much as possible to bootstrap from day one. for as long as we could and continue to grow the company in a healthy and sustainable way until we got to that point where it made sense to take on investment. So, yeah, I think if anything, working with startups and working kind of with VCs and seeing this happen to so many founders made us more wary of taking on investment ourselves.
Yeah. What would you say are kind of things people should look out for when they are kind of exploring, looking for investors for their business?
It makes sense, especially in the early stages, to find investors that truly understand and believe in what you're doing and understand your vision and are and want to have their incentives aligned with yours. So the purpose of an investment at an early stage or any investment in a company is to want to see that company succeed and to believe, especially in the early stages, in the founders of that company and their ability to push the vision forward. And I
Yeah.
think that if an investor is coming to you asking, to take half of your business or to be, basically to come in with any predatory terms, that's not someone that you want to have on your cap table. That's not someone that is going to support you or help you grow your business. You want the investors and the founders to have aligned incentives. And I think that's the number one thing. If that's not what they're looking for, then it's a major red flag.
No, I think that's great. That's great information. But you're on Side Hustlers. You made it on the show, like cameras rolling. What were your biggest learnings from there? Because it seemed like it was just really a great kind of boot camp for kind of new entrepreneurs in the space.
We were so excited and so grateful that we were able to work with Emma and Ashley. I mean, they're such incredible women. They've accomplished so much and
Hmm.
have both championed women in different ways in their industries and in multiple ways in their industries, whether it's through their investments, through their own entrepreneurial endeavors, and even like the mission statements of their own personal brands and companies. So, kind of being in that space was such an enlightening experience and an empowering experience. Like that is they are our dream investors, really. And everything that you see on camera, I think, is just a fraction of the kindness and support and intelligence of these women. They're truly incredible. And for us, we were at such a critical, and we still are at like a critical stage in our business where we're kind of transitioning from this smaller production, smaller scale regional company to something that is more has a lot more reach. And we have been doing it solo from day one. We haven't brought on investors, we haven't brought on advisors. We've been fully funding ourselves and teaching ourselves what to do. So at this critical point, to have validation that what we're doing is the correct path was incredibly important. Like I had said before, this is the first time that we're doing this. Emma and Ashley have both scaled businesses, have both kind of been through the ringer in exactly what we're doing multiple times. So to kind of be able to go through our financial statements, to go through our expansion plans, to go through our approach to retail, our approach to marketing, our approach to direct to consumer, and just have that feedback and validation that we're on the right path just
Hmm.
gave us so much more confidence in what we were doing.
Yeah. I think too to what you said about, kind of giving, everyone the kind of points that they need to determine in order to make sure that their investors are right. These two really, and you saw on camera, loved the product. And I think to your point, that's like key is making sure that you have that alignment, with people
Yeah,
that you're gonna do business with.
absolutely, absolutely.
So what was your kind of biggest learning from the entire show and what you gained?
I think that something I realized throughout the show, and I mean, the show we were filming for 6 weeks. We were filming five days a week. There was a lot that didn't make it onto the show. A lot of people that we spoke to, a lot of experiences that we had. I think that even speaking with the other women that were on the show and being able to communicate about our own very different experiences in entrepreneurship. I think that on this journey, you're going to be getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people. I think that taking on that feedback and being open to it is so important and necessary, but you should make sure that you are also sitting on that table. Like, this is your company, right? Nobody knows it better than you. Like, you want to be at a table with people that are voicing their opinions, that are telling you, like, this is what I think, this is what I think, like, this is what you should do. But you need to be sitting at that table too.
Okay, so at some point you went from working in your commercial kitchen with your co-founder and a couple of friends and your mom making your cookies to going to a co-packer, right? So what kind of sparked that? What were the things that were happening in the business that you felt you needed to move to that?
Yeah, so I think for us, going into more automated manufacturing was definitely something that we foresaw from day one. We always kind of wanted to make this into a bigger brand, something more accessible, and that meant having production capacity. So we started off small just because, it's the most accessible thing to do. And we also wanted to get a sense of the recipes and, demand. And very quickly, we started to get more demand than we could keep up with in the commercial kitchen. So it became abundantly clear that we needed to expedite the process of getting our cookies to run in a manufacturing facility. So it really was, especially in the early days, we were turning down more retail accounts than we were accepting just because we couldn't keep up with demand out of a commercial kitchen.
So how did you even find a co-packer? Like, what did that process look like?
It was a really in-depth search. I think one, using a gluten-free recipe with pretty unique ingredients makes it difficult to manufacture, especially since we weren't using any preservatives, we weren't using any additives, no gums, no lecithins. So we needed to find a facility, one, that kind of met our standards in terms of quality, and two, that had the right machinery and know-how to be able to get the product to run well. We kind of cast a wide net at first, interviewed people over the phone, visited a bunch of facilities, did multiple test runs at different facilities, and then multiple times at kind of our top choices to ensure that things would run well. And over this time, I ended up doing over 100 iterations of every recipe to, the process of doing test runs at co-packers and seeing how, these recipes are at scale requires so much fine tuning. You're like, okay, so this is actually how, dough is extruded from a machine, and this is how it's cut, and this is how it's packaged. And it completely reorients the way that, you look at how a recipe works and how something is produced. So making it in my kitchen is a little bit different than the recipe making it, in a massive automated facility. But that being said, we kept it super, super clean, and it's all of the same ingredients. It literally just is, a slight ratio difference and a process difference.
That's great. So how long did it take from the time that you started to search for, a co-packer into actually finding the one that was able to make the cookie in the same, way that you were making it out of your kitchen?
Honestly, it took about a year and a half, maybe even longer, from the very first time we started doing that outreach to doing a full production run in an automated facility. And I think this was, the biggest challenge that we ran into starting the business and growing the business, because if you can't produce product, then you don't have a company. We were very strict about not compromising the quality of the product, not compromising the ingredient list. And most of the manufacturers that we went to, their first response is, you guys should add these preservatives, you should add these emulsifiers or these, basically additives that most brands have, because it makes it so much easier to manufacture their products. Yeah. And so, navigating all of that and kind of sticking to our guns made the process take a lot longer.
How did you weather through that? It being over a year. I mean, I would imagine that at sometimes you're like, is this even going to happen? Can this really be created outside of my kitchen? How did you, continue to push forward and know that you were going to get eventually to a place where you were going to have, exactly what you were looking for?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of sleepless nights, and I for sure was thinking, is this ever going to work? Am I just fooling myself thinking that I can mass produce something without adding any chemicals to it? But what kind of kept me going, it was a couple of things. The first is that every test run that we would do, we would get closer to having a product that could be mass produced. So I knew that the steps that we were taking were in the right direction. And each time I was like, okay, all of these things were fixed. There's one more tweak left, and then one more little tweak, and one more little tweak. So having those little moments of encouragement, it helped us keep going. It wasn't that every time it was just a complete failure.
Yeah.
that would have been a little bit.
It's just like a slight improvement every time that just kept you
Exactly.
feeling good that you were finally going to get there.
Yeah.
So then once you got there, you were saying how, part of this process was, opportunity for you to get into more retail stores. So what kind of happened after that? What was then open to you in regards to, getting into some additional retail stores?
Yeah. So I think the floodgates kind of opened up after that happened, and we tried to get all the systems in place to be able to take advantage of this new production capacity that we had. So it looked like a couple of different things. The first was bringing on a nationwide broker that, we vetted and that we trusted to start pitching to new accounts, both regionally and nationwide. We unlocked the two biggest nationwide distributors, so both KE and UNFI. So our reach expanded in that way as well. We kind of got all of our operations in order as this was happening to make sure that we had, freight in order, and we had, costs ready to go, and our finances kind of tied up to make sure that we still had healthy margins with this expansion. It was very much, an unglamorous operational push when the production capacity expanded, but the return has been amazing. It's been really exciting to see the response that we're getting.
I think that's a really good takeaway for people is what you're saying is you got all kind of your ducks in a row before you hit, additional retailers, and making sure that all of the things that are pertinent and, you don't want to falter in once you get into retail stores were already in place. So I think that's just a really good takeaway.
Yeah, that's something that we definitely have learned along the way is that, one of the primary things that retailers are looking for is a really reliable partner. You don't want to be out of stock on the shelf. You don't want to, send product that is accidentally out of date or delayed. And so that's something that we wanted to make sure that we had ready to go before we expanded, because I think, once you make a mistake, it's not likely that they're going to let you back on the shelf.
Yeah. So outside of outside of your co-packer and of course your co-founder, did you have to take on any additional people on your team, or did you kind of move forward with the two of you?
We have not expanded the team, actually. For better or for worse, it is just carrying through. We definitely, I think mentorship is incredibly important. We are for sure reaching out to people and kind of trying to get insight on how to manage these bigger launches, on how to manage the finances, rely a lot on our brokers and our distributors and kind of these third-party organizations that we work with operationally to ensure that everything goes well. But for the most part, yeah, we haven't expanded the team. I do think it's something that could definitely happen in the not so distant future, but most of our resources are really going into getting things to run well operationally. And I think that, as we potentially raise more money and more funds come in, then growing the team would be on the table.
Yeah, that makes sense. So with the two of you and expanding into retail stores, once product was on shelf, kind of what did that look like in regards to how you drove awareness, drove traffic, and got people excited to buy Brune?
Yeah, so for us, our product is vegan, gluten-free, refined sugar-free, organic, super clean, doesn't have butter, doesn't have flour, doesn't have any of the things that people usually think are going to be in dessert. And so most people think it's going to taste terrible. Like that's the initial impression that people will have.
Right.
And rightfully so. A lot of products that are like this just don't taste good. And so for us, something that's really, really important is giving people an easy opportunity to try the product for themselves. Mm. And that means a lot of sampling, a lot of brand activations, a lot of ways to just have people confirm that, oh, this is actually something that tastes good before they spend their money and, commit to buying it. So we do sampling in stores. We love partnering with other brands at events and things like that, where a lot of our target demographics would be. And we also rely a lot on influencers that we trust and that we follow to, try the cookies and give people their honest reviews, to give another indication like that, oh, this actually does taste good. And then they can see the product on their screen, not just in like a professional photograph on our website. So I think that's been a really big thing for us, just like the social media campaigns, brand activations, and sampling.
Is there any way that you would kind of percent out or prioritize which one you feel is the most impactful out of those activations?
I think that in-store sampling is probably the most impactful. You're targeting people that are already right where your product is, especially for us starting out where we're more in like health stores and specialty stores. Our target demographic is really walking right in front of us. And we know that there are people that have some interest in these cleaner products, and we're able to interface with them directly, ask them questions, see what they think about the packaging, what they think about the flavor, and they're also able to immediately buy the product. So it boosts our sales and, helps our numbers, and it just kind of hits everything you could possibly want from, a marketing perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the best is definitely just getting right in front of your customer and getting them to try it right in front of you.
Yeah.
So what about, so this product is actually in the refrigerated section, right? So a little bit different than where you typically and traditionally would find cookies. How do you communicate to retail buyers like the positioning there and, get that additional space when it comes to refrigeration?
Yeah, I mean, the refrigerated space is incredibly competitive. It's just physically a smaller part of the store. So schematics wise, it's hard to fit new products in there. Almost every product that goes in, they're going to have to kick somebody out. So it's definitely, a challenge to be able to convince buyers that your product should be in that set. And for us, we really emphasize one, that people are starting to look in this category for clean desserts. It is a growing space. We've polled a bunch of people, whether it's at our sampling events or online, about their thoughts on like a refrigerated product or refrigerated dessert. And the response has overwhelmingly been they think that it's cleaner, they think that it's fresher, and people are starting to become more familiar with this space. And so that's something that we often bring up to buyers, because it is very much an emerging category. And for Brune specifically, especially when we're doing pitches and things like that, we, have taken a close look at our competitors. A lot of them are brands that we love and we use too, but the way that we kind of compare and what we're going for is that we hit more dietary restrictions. We hit kind of more of the markers that people are looking for at a price that is either in line or oftentimes less expensive than our competitors that are on the shelf. So we're one of the few organic products and gluten-free. So we're getting our USDA organic certification, gluten-free certifications, vegan, women-owned. So we're trying to appeal to every buyer.
What I love about that is the fact that you are actually polling, your potential consumers and getting some insight from them that you're actually sharing with retail buyers on why, this product should be placed in the refrigeration section. So I think that's also just really great to connect the two, because how can they say no when they're actually getting true detailed information from people that would shop their stores?
Yeah, I find it, so much more compelling. And at the end of the day, we have to listen to what the consumers are saying. It's not up to us. I shouldn't think that I know best just because this is my product. we're making this product for other people to enjoy and other people to find. So one of the
Yeah.
first things that I like to do is ask people what they actually think.
Yeah. So speaking of that, once your product was on shelf, were there any major takeaways that you learned from consumers that you had to change, whether it's pricing or packaging or anything like that?
Yeah, one of the first things that we changed about the product after it actually hit the shelves is we made the packaging more transparent. So, especially again for a product that people will often think doesn't taste good just because it is clean. They want to see it. They want to see what they're getting. They want to get a sense of what it actually looks like. Does it look like, a mud cake, or does it look like a cookie? And so that's something that we very quickly iterated upon. And kind of every version of our packaging, you can see more and more of the cookie.
That's good too, because you didn't just say this, the way that it's packaged and the way that it looks is perfect and it's going to sell. You're actually listened to your customer and changed it kind of to ensure that you were really delivering to them what they were looking for. So what is next for Brune Kitchen? As we're going into Q4, I mean, cookie season is definitely happening. What are some fun things that are happening throughout this quarter for the brand?
So this quarter, we should finish our onboarding with our new distributors, which is really exciting because we have a long list of committed accounts that have been kind of under wraps. And we're hoping that hopefully by the end of this year, definitely at the beginning of next year, you'll be able to find Brune in a lot more places than you currently can. So that's really exciting. Yeah, so we also Q1 have some newspapers coming out. We have some new retailers lined
Amazing.
up, and I can't tell you what they are yet, even though I really, really want to. But yeah, the next few months are going to be very exciting and big for us. A little overwhelming, but good overwhelm.
All good. Good. That's exciting. Can't wait to kind of see what that looks like in Q1. I wish I knew today. But definitely excited for you. So, where can we find Brune today? What retailers are you in? Where can consumers purchase or listeners purchase? And then how can they even follow you?
So the easiest place to find Brune is on our website at brunekitchen.com. So that way you'll be able to access it nationwide. We do have really fast shipping now, which I'm excited about. And then in terms of retail in Southern California, you can find us at any Arowan, you can find us at any Lassen's, and very soon in a lot more places. So we have a store locator on our website that is constantly updated. You can also follow us on socials at Brune Kitchen on Instagram, and also brune.kitchen on TikTok, which is, pretty fun. So I would suggest following both. Very different content.
Amazing. And I'll definitely make sure I link all of those in the show notes. So thank you so much, Tanya. This has been just a great conversation, and you've really given some amazing insight on how to grow a brand and how to get into retail stores in a way that's planful, I think, and making sure that again you're making sure all of those ducks are in a row before you hit those retail shelves.
Thank you so much, Roberta. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. This was so fun.